This is the Corsair Scimitar RGB, a USB mouse that utilises a 12,000 dpi optical sensor with a 1 millisecond response time. Aimed at MMO players, the mouse features 14 configurable buttons and 4-zone RGB lighting. But is that enough to make this a mouse worth buying? Over the last 3 weeks, I found out. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another video in the new studio. Today we're looking at the Corsair Scimitar RGB. Now this is a mouse that's clearly aimed at MMO players, and as soon as you look at the physical overview of the product, yeah, you can tell. Starting at the front we have the Corsair logo, and this is illuminated and you can configure this to whatever your colour you fancy in the software. Moving up the mouse you'll find the two buttons left and right for your left and right click. You'll find an illuminated scroll wheel in the middle as well as two buttons in the middle, and then these are configurable to whatever you like. I believe in the default state they sort of cycle between modes or change the DPI up or down. I can't really remember because by the time you get in the software you can configure literally what everything does, and this is a theme that's continued on the left side of the mouse when you'll find that we have 12 buttons arranged in this block. And this block is also illuminated with RGB LED lighting, so you can have whatever colour you like behind there. And this whole block as well, it's movable, so if you go on the underside of the mouse you can grab the included sort of hex key, stick that in, twist it, and then the whole block is movable and you can move this left and right. Moving on to the LED next to the block, this again is configurable and it's quite useful if you want to set up reactive lighting. So if you press one of the buttons on the block you can say set the colour to red. So if you set the middle mouse to be a sniper button for instance, as soon as you start pressing the button and as soon as you're holding it down it goes red, and this indicates that it's all working, but obviously you should be able to see in action on screen anyway. Moving to the right hand side of the mouse you'll find you have a sort of grippy rubber. This just helps the right hand side of your hand to grip the mouse, and the overall feel of the mouse actually is very comfortable, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. The whole material on the front of the mouse is a sort of matte black soft touch plastic finish, and the whole thing feels very premium and it also feels very comfortable as well. It does come with a slight side effect, but again we'll talk about that in a minute. It's worth noting this mouse does come in different colours, and the one we've got here is just the jet black all black version, and we have a sort of gloss finish on the left hand side, but if you went for a different colour, say yellow, then this bit would be yellow. Move to the underside of the mouse and there's not actually really that much here. There's that hole for the hex key as I've mentioned earlier, and of course you'll find the sensor, which is an optical 12,000 dpi sensor. Yes, you'll probably more than likely never ever, and I recommend that you never ever use the 12,000 dpi setting of the mouse, but it's there if you want to use it, and in theory it should sort of help the general sensor with its sensitivity even at lower DPIs, but that could just be a load of gas, not entirely sure. But you won't find any weights here. Unlike the Corsair M65 mouse, you don't have any adjustable weight, so if you want to make the mouse a little bit heavier or a little bit lighter, you are out of luck. I would say it's quite a medium weight mouse, maybe slightly on the light side, but generally speaking it's actually sort of the way I would like it anyway. But if you're used to a really light mouse or you're used to a really heavy mouse, then you might want to look elsewhere. The only other thing to mention on the physical overview is that the USB cable is braided and is not attachable. So that's the tour of the mouse. As you can probably tell, it is actually a nice, attractive, premium looking mouse, which you should sort of expect, bearing in mind it is more of a premium mouse, but that is all completely irrelevant if it's not very good to use. But the good news is it is. In 2 words, I would describe this mouse as very good. Now that's for 2 reasons. One, the sensor itself feels nice and responsive. I didn't really get on with the Corsair Sabre, as some of you will know, but I really do like the Corsair M65, and both of those mice sort of sit below this in the Corsair price chain, if you like. And this definitely feels more like an M65 in terms of responsiveness. This does use an optical sensor, whereas the M65 I'm used to uses a laser sensor, but even though you're probably never going to use that 12,000 dpi of the sensor in the Scimitar, I feel that it is actually really nice and responsive and handles motion really well. And that's just in general desktop use as well as first person shooter gaming or Twitch gaming or anything like that. I found it was a really nice versatile mouse and was really user friendly regardless of whether you wanted to use any of the buttons. There was a slight issue I did have with the mouse, and I will say that the mouse itself is really comfortable. It fits my hands really nicely. I sort of just go for the general sort of claw approach. I don't know if that's what you call it, but basically I have my hand contacting all of the mouse, all of my palm on all of the mouse. And while the finish is really nice, it's really nice and premium, it feels really nice in the hand. Obviously you've got that rubber on the right hand side, which does help to sort of keep all your fingers in place. You did get a slight issue with sweaty palms. And this isn't going to be too much of an issue for most people, because I only noticed this about an hour, hour and a half into gaming sessions. But one thing I did notice, and this is something that I haven't really noticed so much with other mice that I've been testing recently, is if you're, say, out and about, you're in your car, you're driving, you naturally get a bit of sweat built up, obviously from the steering wheel, depending on how long you've been in the car. So if you come straight in and then you use your PC straight away, I've noticed that I'd be getting sweaty palms within about 10-15 minutes of getting out the car and actually starting to use the mouse. It's probably not going to affect a lot of people, and obviously the solution to this is to wash your hands before you use the mouse, but it is something to note, and it did become a little bit uncomfortable whenever I did do that. So then the mouse is nice and responsive, and it's very comfortable until you get sort of sweaty palms if you're prone to that. But the greatest thing I think about this mouse is just how customizable it is. You've got those 2 buttons on the top as well as the 12 buttons on the side. And the thing that I found is I'm not really a big MMO player, and I've never really been a fan of having loads of different buttons on the mouse. It's not something I'm really ever going to use, and especially in game I just prefer to use the keyboard to do most of the things. But I was actually quite impressed with just how customizable it was, and I found that I was only using 3 buttons plus the top 2 of the mouse. So I'd have just in general desktop use, I'd have a couple of the buttons as back and forward, and then one as a sniper button which lowers the DPI. And it just, even for that, I found it was really nice, and there's so many different customizations you can do, whether it's media keys, macros, in-game functions, so many different things you can do on any of the buttons. And yes, it's probably true that there are too many buttons and you are very unlikely to configure and use all of them, but I like the way it scales with the user, and if you're someone that does want these features and are used to these features, then it's actually quite user-friendly and easy to set everything up. Same goes with the lighting. Just simply go into the Q software and you can configure everything that the mouse does, including the lighting. And as I sort of alluded to earlier, you can have reactive lighting, so that if you press a particular button on the mouse, it changes the lighting or changes the scheme. You can set up different profiles. So I have one just for general desktop use and then one for when I'm gaming, and you could do this for different games, and literally the possibilities, while they're probably not endless, they've got to be pretty close. And so if you are someone that wants to use those buttons, then I think you're going to feel right at home, and it was actually very impressive indeed. Now, as this is called the Scimitar RGB, we probably should talk about the RGB lighting. And as a lot of you guys will sort of know by now, for me, RGB lighting is cool in the right application. Put it on a headset, no, you can't see it, it's pointless. Put it on a keyboard, it's very cool, and it does make your keyboard look a lot better, but because you've got so many keys, it can make it quite expensive to implement. Where RGB lighting is at home is on mice though, and this does a stellar job of looking awesome, and while still having completely customizable RGB lighting without making the mouse ridiculously expensive. And this is exactly the sort of things we should have. RGB lighting on places it matters without it breaking the bank. So the good news is that you can customize the lighting to loads of different effects. You can have breathing effects, static effects, color changing effects, glowing effects, loads of different effects, and you can configure all of these in the software. But one thing that is also pretty cool, and as I'm someone that owns a Corsair K70 RGB as well as a RGB headset, the Void RGB, you can sync it up so that you can have some really cool effects where the lighting will sort of travel from one to the other, or they just all mirror the same effect. And it's actually pretty damn cool, and this is obviously one of Corsair's marketing things, so that you can buy basically everything in the range and it all works together. But definitely on this application it does work very well, and certainly from a RGB lighting point of view on a mouse it does make perfect sense. And so with that brings us towards the end of this video. This mouse is actually pretty damn good. I wasn't really sure what to think of it because I've never really used a mouse like this before with so many buttons, but the thing that impressed me the most about it was how user-friendly it was to get everything set up and show me that there are loads of features that I didn't even know about that you could basically use by having all these buttons. and this is something that is very heavily reliant on software. If you took away the software completely, you'd basically just have a load of buttons and you wouldn't be able to do much with it. So it's nice to see that the hardware and the software sort of link together in a way that is nice and user-friendly. The performance of the mouse is very good. No matter what game you're playing, the sensor is nice and accurate. The mouse is very nice to hold and is very easy to use. And the only real drawbacks are the fact that it doesn't have customizable weight. You get slightly sweaty palms if you are using this mouse for a prolonged period of time, and of course the fact that it is more expensive than both the Sabre and the M65 in the same Corsair range, but I think that's just a general trait of MMO mouses, or mice. They are more expensive than their, obviously, brothers with less features and less buttons. So overall, this wins the Top Performer Award. It's not for everybody. I'd still point people in the direction of the M65 if they aren't going to ever use all of the features of this mouse. But if you are someone that thinks you will or knows you will use all the different buttons and use this mouse to its full potential, then it's a solid choice and comes highly recommended. So, thank you so much for checking out this video, and a big thank you to Corsair for sponsoring the channel as always. A big thank you to you guys for watching, it's highly appreciated. For more videos like this, please subscribe, and obviously give this video a like if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and if you have any comments at all, leave them down below, or at PC Centric on Twitter. And this is Go Big Week as well, so if you want to follow everything that's going on, it's at PC Centric on Snapchat and Instagram. So thank you so much for checking out this video as always, and I'll see you in the next one.